Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. Again, just to briefly, thanks for the kind introduction, Rich. Lots of familiar faces, also some new faces, which is also great. Yeah, so talk a little bit about Dask. And like the biggest problem with Dask right now is deployment of Dask. I think for the first couple years of Pangeo, like most of what we talked about is like, how do we actually make it easy to run Dask on various infrastructure? That was by far the most common problem, more so than parallel algorithms or anything. One sort of experiment that we did was to run Dask on the cloud on Kubernetes with Jupyter Hub. And that actually I did first time with that out of UK at the
AMS.
Yeah, AMS conference. Thanks, Rich. And it was amazing. And then we all became IT devs as a result of that experience. That was a painful experience. We just made a company to try to sort of automate that process of setting up Dask clusters. I'll talk a little bit about that. I was going to do this today with Gabe Joseph, who's another Coil employee and other fellow Pangean. He had a family emergency, and so he's not here today. So for the demo part of this, you get me, unfortunately. So it'll be kind of a lame demo. We'll see what we can do. So I'm going to share my screen, give a quick talk, do some demo stuff. If you want to play around, you can import Coiled and then create a Coiled cluster. It's very easy to do. Let's do this. So. So Coiled manages Dask clusters on the cloud. That's what it does. If you look at Pangeo's common architecture that we see, so not talking about Coil, talking about Pangeo first. Generally speaking, we talk about Pangeo on cloud deployments. You've got some cloud account, you're on AWS, you're on Azure, you're on some private account, you're on some region. You usually stand up Kubernetes. You usually deploy a Jupyter Hub inside there. You proxy out so you can reach that from some web browser. You've probably got some Docker image, maybe a few Docker images for different software environments that you're managing for your team. And you use Dask Gateway or Dask Kubernetes, and you start up Dask clusters. This is, at least as of a year ago, this is what most sort of Pangeo deployments in the cloud looked like. And I assume that this is still what they look like today.
Yeah.
Great. And then and this is great. This is a highly pragmatic platform. And then Pangeo is super successful. And so now there's actually a ton of these things living around in different clouds and different accounts. And each of these things are usually set up with some kind of config file that we're deploying with Helm or with some other system. And each of which comes with some IT team. And that's usually some postdoc in some department. And this is fine. This works. It's a little bit distracting. It's a little bit of a challenge, but this is great. So Coiled was designed to take off a fair amount of this and try to move that off to some long-lived professionally managed service. And so that tries to solve a few problems that we see. So first, there's a fair amount of IT headache. I think a lot of us sort of started off as scientists, or started off as computer algorithm people, and we became IT people. That was an odd career transition for us. There's challenges around managing software environments. So usually there's a team lead who mints Docker images, throws them some config file, and then there's a bunch of students who use those Docker images. And there's this sort of duality between people in control and people who can use the thing. We also have to manage users and manage costs between those people. And it also sort of starts to break if we want to do things that are not running notebooks. If we want to have batch jobs or regular returning jobs or things we just want to sort of submit and run. And then finally, there's sort of this challenge of keeping the lights on. This ends up being hard. We have solutions for all these things today. There's a ton of YAML that we all write, but it still consumes a fair amount of our attention. So Coiled is slightly different. Coiled is one centrally managed service that maintains Dask clusters on various clouds. And so I'm actually moving the Dask clusters out of the Kubernetes deployment that's owned by you all. And Coil is now going to spin up resources on your behalf inside of your account. That removes the need for Dask Gateway. Coil is kind of like a one Dask Gateway to rule them all. Coil also manages software environments separately. So we actually give that control to users. you can specify content environments, pip files, and we'll create Docker images for you and move them around to various clouds for you as needed. That removes, again, sort of a chunk of sort of repeated IT infrastructure costs that we were all sort of facing before. Coil also is distinct in that it's not attached to Jupyter Hub. You can connect to and create Coil clusters from anywhere that you can run Python. So when I do a demo in a few minutes, like I'll just be running from an IPython session or a notebook on my laptop. We're no longer sort of tied to the same place where we are running Dask. And that ends up freeing us up a lot. We can use Coil from CI services or from Jenkins jobs or from prefect tasks or anywhere. We don't sort of need to be on the same system that's actually running the computation. That allows us to remove Kubernetes entirely if we want to, and significantly shrink the sort of complexity of the stuff that we manage. And so again, Coil allows a different kind of workflow, which provides the sort of the loss of the IT pains I think a lot of us were facing before. Coil also provides a lot of user and team and cost management. So behind Coiled is just a normal database. We look like any sort of database-driven web application. And so we do all sort of the normal things that those services provide. So teams, cost limitations, who can or can't use GPUs, sharing software environments. Once I do a demo, you can use my same software environment. It's completely usable. Other people in your team can use it. So it provides more of a GitHub-like experience. Some folks don't like owning their own AWS accounts, their own Azure accounts, their own GCP accounts. And so Coiled also maintains them ourselves. So this makes it actually really easy for students or people who don't really want to understand the cloud at all to still have access to Dask in the cloud without thinking too much about it. So that was the brief sales pitch. Sorry, is there a question? No, okay, great. Brief sales pitch. Let's find a Jupyter notebook. Actually, let's start with, let's see if I can make this really, really, really big. So the standard Coil demo is you open up Python and you import Coiled and you make a cluster. And let's ask for maybe 10 workers. Oh no. And so what that does is that starts up, oops, I'm on the wrong team. That starts up a cluster on AWS by default. So my account is based on AWS in US East 2, but I can flip all those things around. And I can, from anywhere that I can run Python, I can create a Coil cluster. In about a minute, that cluster will become available to me and I can start running Dask stuff on it. And that's the point. Right, Coil just makes it very, very easy to run Dask. You can do this yourself if you pip install Coil and import Coiled. We're sort of the easiest way to run Dask on any cloud. On the left, I've got my sort of Python view. I'm running here from IPython, but I can also be running from a notebook or a batch job. On the right, I'm looking at Coiled, which has sort of the standard things you would need in order to manage your Dask clusters. While that's running, I'm actually also going to start up. I stole this notebook from the Pangeo gallery. And we're just going to start up another cluster here, which would be a bit larger and using a software environment that has things like Xarray in it and other things. I actually don't know who wrote this notebook. Maybe they're here. Maybe it's you, Rich. I don't know.
It was me.
It was you. Well, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I had to, again, Gabe wasn't around. I had to come up with some geoscience example really quickly, and having the Pangeo gallery present was really convenient. So again, while that's happening, we now have a couple of little clusters that are running. One's up here and running. You can go look at the dashboard if we want to. You can catch up to that cluster. We can go out and do normal Dasky things. Right. So again, people have seen Dask demos before. This should all look fairly familiar too. What's nice though is that a lot of stuff is being handled behind the scenes for us, like spinning things up, telling us how much things are costing. There's things like cost management. I can't scale to 1,000 workers. Coil will yell at me, right? So there's obvious limits that are baked in. There are things like software environments. So I am playing with this software environment, which has the things that we sort of care about in sort of the work that we do. But if I want to, notice that James is on the call. So James is another Dask maintainer, and he has a different set of software environments. And so he was playing with Snowflake recently, and there's some work that he was doing there. If I want to, I can go and I can make a new cluster with James's software. And I can run that in a different region. And I can ask for different kinds of worker CPUs. Maybe I want 2 worker CPUs, for example. And let's see if I actually remember all of those commands. Nope, correctly. Yeah, and so again, like I can construct. James, can you add me to your team, please?
Yep.
Thanks. So I can construct these clusters sort of willy-nilly across the cloud without setting up all the IT infrastructure that we normally set up. And that's powerful because it removes a lot of that challenge that we normally think about. We only think about sort of focusing on, and allows us to get back to more fun things. So again, here's Rich's notebook. I merged some cells. Again, I'm operating again from my laptop. Right? So this is localhost. But I'm able to operate on this data set that is sizable. And so I've kind of removed a lot of the IT pain that we were feeling before. And I've moved this, I've sort of hidden away a lot of those challenges. So Coiled was very much designed around the challenges that we saw in those very first Pangeo deployments. And we tried to abstract out all the stuff that I don't think this group should think about and make it a lot more accessible. And as a result, I think anybody now can just pip install Coiled and start running, and it should be a more pleasant experience. That being said, it's not entirely pleasant. There's still lots of things that are problematic. So just a few notes. So you can do this yourselves right now. If you feel like doing it, you can pip install Coiled. We give like $10 per month free, like other sort of CI services. So it's an easy way to sort of get started. Let me move this up here. Coiled provides a bunch of other ancillary features that are sort of critical after you've gotten things deployed, like managing software environments, or tracking costs, or tracking users, or sort of the sort of general admin stuff around running Dask. I was talking to Gabe before when we were talking about this presentation, and like Gabe has a really good point that Coiled moves a lot of the responsibilities from what was previously IT, or realistically people like Rich or Joe who were managing these deployments, and it removes a lot of those responsibilities down to the users. So now the users can create their own software environments. They can share them around. The users can choose which region they want to be running in. It's not just something it needs to be made for them. And so we're sort of pushing a lot of decisions down to the ground where I think they should be. It's maybe similar to how Anaconda kind of pushed a lot of software installation from IT's role, installing things onto the system account, onto the user space. Coiled is moving a lot of that configuration into user space that I think unlocks a lot of potential. So what's next? There's still lots of challenges. So we're sanding down rough edges. You saw me flail a little bit with James's account being private, which I didn't realize. And so there's things like that. And so I think this group understands a lot of the pain around making this a smooth experience. And we love your engagement there. Coil does run all 3 platforms, AWS, Azure, and GCP. We're definitely AWS first. And so like running in your own Azure account, like requires us to do something special for you. We have to we don't have the UI built out for that, for example. Everything works, it's just a little bit less pleasant. We're working on that now. And the third sort of big thing I'm excited about sort of upcoming is performance reporting. So we're collecting a lot of data for people who are deploying on Coiled that allows us to give sort of longitudinal dashboards over a long time. as well as sort of all the sort of general stuff that the Coil team works on with Dask. So that's it. I will stop talking now and open for questions.
Great, thank you. There's a question, Matt, in the chat from Shell about whether you handle provisioning of blob storage and permissions for groups. Shell, do you want to just?
Yeah, Matt, I mean, I love this concept of really removing a lot of the barriers to working on the cloud. And I think that you guys have built this great user interface for doing that. One thing that comes along with that is the moment I